Hope everyone else can hear you. Obviously, the reason why I wanted to kind of have the conversation, because I thought it was good in terms of what's happening in the media about, obviously, in our day, back in the day, you wouldn't have heard of a child taking their parent to court because obviously they've been sent back to their home country and whatnot. And I would say that I'm quite a new parent in a sense. And currently, well, basically, I was living in Ghana for some time. I'm not in Ghana at the moment. And like I said, as a new mum, I've had my children here. So my thought is always, how can I forge and what can we do as parents to kind of forge a better relationship with our kids here and Ghana? And then obviously this coming up, I'm thinking, if a child had to be shipped back to Ghana, if they had a better relationship with Ghana, a more positive relationship with Ghana, would it be seen as the end of the world still? So obviously, speaking to you, we can probably get a better insight on that. So could you tell us a bit about your experience, just briefly, what happened with you?
Yeah, sure. Now, first of all, thanks for having me, and big up Sifa for putting us all together.
Of course,
in this capacity.
Always the general.
In terms of my experience, I got kicked out of a few high schools in this borough, Brent, Northwest London, and I couldn't get reintegrated into another school. So I think mum, with her like divine wisdom, may she rest in peace, she was kind of more or less taking me out of this environment because the pathological ways that I was pursuing weren't necessarily the best. So it was a case of like, look, you don't have a school to return to in September, because the expulsions occurred before my GCSEs, the worst time ever. So yeah, so basically she's like, look, you don't have school to come back to, why don't you just come to Ghana and chill? And I welcomed it because trouble was actually coming to the house in terms of the little nonsense that I was getting involved with. Like, it was coming to the doorsteps. So I actually welcomed the time out. It wasn't only until I got to Ghana, probably around about 2 weeks, and then we traveled up to her parents, my grandfather's place in the central region, a place called Swedru, where she kind of like dropped the atom bomb, like, you ain't getting nowhere until you reform, until you get the amount of GCSEs necessary to reintegrate back into education back in London. And that whole little rude boy, tough boy persona was out the window quick time. Like, I was bawling like a baby. I was crying.
I was about to say, how did you feel when she told you you're not coming back to
Distraught. I tried to steal my passport on 2 occasions after she told me, to no avail, because she's smart like that. And yeah, it was the start of what initially felt like a sentence. And I'd been to Ghana several times, so it wasn't an alien place. The culture wasn't necessarily alien, but the thought of living there, the thought of not getting back to my luxuries that I often took for granted in terms of having my own room, not having to wake up early and clean up the whole house, having a washing machine instead of doing, what the Jamaicans call scrub, all of that. So, I mean, the experience was humbling, to say the least.
Ghana will do that to you. It will definitely humble you, if anything else.
I'm sorry. I said that again, please, Larissa.
Ghana will do that to you. It will definitely humble you,
in the wickedest way. In the wickedest way.
So, in terms of, how long were you there for, in total?
In total, you can call it 5 years.
5 years.
Like 4 years and 2/3 years. Yeah.
How often did you go to Ghana prior to getting left there?
My sister and I, my mum, my sister and I took trips. I'd say around about 3-4 trips prior to that long stint.
So when was the first time you went?
First time I was like 4.
You was about 4, so it's quite early.
I was 3. No, I was 3, and I think, and my sister was 5.
So it was quite early. So you kind of knew the country and everything.
Yeah, even though then the memories are vivid, what I remember most is fan milk, just like fan ice, pictures of Jerry Rawlings everywhere. For those that don't know, he was one of like the more outspoken presidents who actually took over Ghana via a coup initially. And yeah, just images of him, you know, with his aviators, sunglasses, looking cool, fan ice cream. So it wasn't really, you know, it wasn't like I was embedded into the culture, but I do remember one or two.
How long would you say it kind of took before you started to feel a bit different in terms of a bit more positive towards your time in Ghana?
That was like 18 months in. Once I just came to the realization, you know, you ain't getting nowhere. I just started to embrace it. Like I said, it was around about 18 months in. When once I attained the necessary GCSEs to reintegrate back into education in the West, that was my junction, and that was around 2 years into my stay. I could have come back to London, but I opted to stay in Ghana for like almost another 3 years, just because I loved what it was doing for me. The
So
food,
after
the
2
environment.
years, you could have come back.
Yeah. And to be fair, my mum wanted me back because it kind of like, you know, I'm a last born. If there's any parents on here, I know that they love their children equally, but there's an affiliation with your last born, and you know, it bun my mother just doing what she did initially in terms of leaving me with her brothers. So after 2 years, I could have come back, but I just said, look, here's good for me. Let me just stay. You know,
What would you say it taught you? What would you say being in Ghana taught you about, I guess, yourself, about the culture? What would you say?
In terms about okay, I mean, it sounds like a two-part, so I'll answer it individually. In terms of myself, it taught me respect and taught me gratitude. You know, anyone who's like a year, like it's someone who's 5 years, I mean, 5-10 years older than me, they're automatically mum or uncle or auntie, or you know what I mean. And I use that to this very day. And in all fairness, it served me really well in BBC Africa with like a lot of elders that were there that of African background. I call them uncle and auntie, and you know, that's helped me to this very day. And in terms of what it done for me culturally, I kid you not, and I don't mean this on some kind of kumbaya talk, but in terms of how I connected with my roots, in terms of where I'm from, we are Akwamu and then we are Fanti, and just knowing that I could actually trace my family tree of like centuries. I know exactly where they are. That was so enriching. Like I come from something that I can actually see, or I can refer to, or I can go to in terms of a place. What it does, I mean, I'm struggling, man, and I've got a big mouth. I can't quantify it into words. I can't tell you what it does.
Did you
it's a lot.
Did you learn the language? Did you learn how to cook any Ghanaian foods?
Yeah. I was even half thinking, like, when we started this, I'm like, Yakatri, I know. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I've learned it like 100%, but I can conversate with you right now, no problem. And I learned a little bit of Ghana because we were staying in Accra for the most part, and I loved Ghana anyway. It was just like aggressive. It's polite and it's aggressive as well. Big up young entrepreneurs. Speak tree. Walker tree. You speak first.
So in terms of why do you think that kind of parents see that as their only way to save their child, by sending them back to a country that for some of them they don't have that affiliation with?
I can only guess. So from my perspective, I think that the parents that's issuing those kind of threats are saying that, or warnings. I don't know, maybe threats a bit too harsh. Or warnings is like, they know what is in Ghana. They've come from Ghana. They fought, you know, tooth and nail to get themselves here, and then to get a stay, and then to raise a family. I feel, and I'm of the assumption that they just know how hard it is in Ghana compared to here. So if you keep on this pathological path of nonsense, we're going to ship you back. And they say that with the sense of they know how hard it is over there and how fortunate they were to get here. So that's what I can assume. I'm only, you know what I mean? I can only assume, you know.
But I guess that's saying in the sense that a child is just not willing to listen anymore. Would you say that you were at that point where you were being told constantly and you just wasn't listening? So I guess your mum felt like she had no other choice.
100%. And it also coincided with the passing of my old man, my pops, who was with us. So and I have to emphasize that, because I had the greatest dad. You know, I have the greatest dad. But when he passed, I was already on crud and I was already outside. But I think when he passed, that's when my mum was like, all right, well, look, there's no one here to oppose what I think, because in actual fact, I actually do recall my mum wanted to do this earlier. I think on my first or second arrest out here.
You were getting arrested?
Yeah. On my first and second arrest out here, she was like, that's it. The first time she came, the police were actually concerned for my welfare, because my mum kicked off, not with the police, with me, for shaming her and the family. You know what I mean? And it was funny because, like I said, the police were actually concerned for me. My dad had a little bit of a smirk,
right?
Because I think my dad was, I think he was a little bit of a chip off the block or something. But my mum, she's like, nah, you're the first person in my side of the family to even go to a station, let alone get arrested, XYZ. And yeah. So forgive me for digressing, but I think it was a case of them knowing where they came from and the hardship that they came from in order to come here. I think that's where those warnings and, dare I say, threats, inverted commas, stem from.
But do you think that parents threatening to send their kids back home automatically kind of ruins any love that the child has for that place, because it's a threat? It doesn't seem anything positive. So if you're threatening that you're going to, do you see what you never threaten, you don't threaten your child, I'm going to give you an ice cream, I'm going to threaten you to give you an ice cream. They see that as something nice. So if you're threatening to send your child to wherever you're thinking of sending them to, don't you think automatically that kind of creates a bit of a barrier for the child and the country?
That's an excellent question, and a complex one to answer. But for the initial phase, it can. I mean, we can't beat around the bush. For in the initial phase of being given that warning or that ultimatum or that threat, it can have a negative connotation on the individual, on the child's perception of Ghana. It can. But I think upon assimilating, and once you get out there, for me, I can only speak for myself. It changed me. It really did. It really did. But no. Let's not even sugarcoat it. Initially, yes, it can have a negative impact on the individual when they're first told.
Do you think that this approach of shipping kids back, do you think it could work if there was more transparency in it? Because obviously, if you're being duped into it in a sense, it's like, wow, how could you do that to me? But do you think that it could work with some sort of transparency, or it will go left completely and you'll never probably see your child again?
I think,
because they're just...
Larissa, I think it's subjective, right? Because I think my mum, like, she used wisdom in terms of, if I tell this boy he ain't coming back, he'll probably run away.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So she had to do a little bit of mental gymnastics on me. She had to just say, like, look, let's just come on holiday. Let's just go on holiday. Yeah, you ain't got no school to go back to anyway. Made sense.
Right.
There was trouble coming to the yard. Made sense. So I think, though, when I say subjective, I think it depends on the situation and the circumstances, and almost the severity of where that child is in terms of how deep they're getting into it. If you've got someone who's just like maybe getting this detention on a regular, then you can maybe be more transparent.
Right.
But if you've got someone who is likely to carry out, not a threat, but then who's likely to take action based on the warning that you've just
right.
issued, then, you know, yeah, I think you have to be more, you have to be more smart about it. And she was.
Do you think that there's anything that your mum or your parents could have done, right, to kind of forge a better connection with you and Ghana, so that when this happened, you probably wouldn't have felt so hard done by?
Listen, man, you ask good questions, you know. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think language. I
Okay.
think language, because that's the one
Yeah.
thing that I was always teasing my mother to the day she passed, like, about languages, because I've got Asian friends who speak their respective languages by the time they're 4 or 5, and there's me and my sister, like, looking forward to bangers and mash, chips and peas, as opposed to wachi or jollof or fufu, or, you know what I mean. So, and what my mother constantly told me was that we didn't want to learn. And I was like, well, mum, it's not a
My
case of
mum
like
says the
want. These are
same
things
thing.
that these are non-negotiables, because down the road it's going to benefit us at some point. And the irony was that sometimes at a Ghanaian function, my mum would tease my sister and I about not speaking it. And me and
Well,
my
you mean
sister, we
as you
got like
were
the most.
older?
Sorry,
You mean as you were older, she would tease you about it?
a little bit older. Yeah, older, older,
yeah,
not as a kid. No,
yeah,
that would be
yeah,
bloody demoralizing,
yeah.
man. As we were older, yeah, she would tease us, and yeah, and I'm thinking, well, look, I'm the product of you not
Right,
teaching me, and
right,
we probably have these jokes, and we
right.
were going back and forth, and it was all bants, but in every joke, there's an element of truth, basically, you know.
Do you
So
think then that it's the parents' responsibility to make it a non-negotiable for us to learn the language?
1,000,000%.
Okay.
Look,
Because my mum says the same thing your mum used to say,
yeah,
because we used to
no, do you know?
respond to her
Yeah.
in English. She would say something in Tree, we understand everything, but we would respond to her in English. So now, when it's a bit techie for us, she's like, that was on you to learn it. But it was probably her role to make sure it was a non-negotiable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I
you
mean,
think, the language, if you had spoken the language, that would have made you feel a bit more comfortable when
it
helped
definitely
you,
would have helped,
should
but
I say?
yeah, no, yes, it definitely would have helped. It would have facilitated. It probably would have facilitated the integration into Ghanaian society quicker. But in all fairness, within not even a week, within days, I was in the ghettos in Ghana chilling and just speaking pidgin. And obviously, I shouldn't have been there and doing what we were doing in there. But I just had that heart. Like, yeah, I'm the guy from Ambrochi, but you know.
So other than the language, is there anything else that, because I'm trying to kind of get inspiration from you in a sense of how, I think someone asked, I think they were talking to me, they asked, am I living in the UK now, or am I still in Ghana? I'm in the UK at the moment. And yeah, just obviously, if my kids aren't there, how can I forge that better relationship? Language, I know I do not want my kids to be like me. I definitely want them to speak the language fluently. Is there anything else that you feel like your parents could have done to help forge that positive relationship, that it was like, oh, you're sending me back to Ghana, all right, yeah, I'm ready, coming in, do you know what I mean? Or I'm leaving you here, oh, okay then. Do you see what I'm saying?
Honestly speaking, off the top of my head, no. I think language is the most integral thing, communication. But I want to, and I want to just also stress that wasn't necessarily the case for me, because like I said, despite not even speaking good Tree or Ghana at all, I just threw myself in, and that's just a case of like personality. I just threw myself in.
But I can imagine
anything else? I think okay. Sorry, I know I initially said no, but I think even like the food, so that you're not too alien. So the diet is not alien to you when you're there.
Okay.
But the funny thing is that when you're hungry, you'll start conforming real quick.
So my
something like, say, like a goosey that doesn't look.
Did you eat
sorry?
a lot of the food then when you
Yeah.
were here
Oh, here.
in the UK before you left?
Here, yes, not a lot, but we
Ah,
had like the light soup, yes. The jollof, yes. We would often be taken to Ghanaian functions like around southeast and east. Um, uh, well, no, I'd be lying if I said that we had a lot of the local dishes here. No,
interesting.
but I think food can do that though. I think actually food does possess the ability to help you connect with a
Brilliant,
culture.
yeah.
I eat a lot of Asian
Right.
food. I'm able to that actually facilitates my connection with the Asian community or my friends who are Asian.
Right.
And then when I order stuff, I even add a little bit of either Gujarati or Punjab when I'm ordering stuff, just to flex because I'm used to it by now.
Wow.
So,
So basically, language and kind of obviously getting our kids used to the language and the food could potentially forge that more positive connection that when they're in Ghana, or if they've been told, okay, well, you have to stay in Ghana longer than usual.
I'm really sorry, Larissa,
Yes.
but I think Sifa's made a good point about she thinks that language is a big thing because when you're in GH, I think she meant if you don't speak it well, they'll make fun of you. So you want to keep your mouth shut. That is
Can imagine. I was about to say that
pandemic
would have been an issue for you when you first
big
got
thing.
here.
It's a huge thing, and it can you can develop that tortoise mentality of just crawling into your shell real quick, and you don't even want to try
or
to
fighting everyone.
Yeah, but then you see the thing is and I never took and it took years of maturity to even look at it from this standpoint. They're just teasing you because if anything, they envy what you got. They know that you have a better life. It's like the one thing I can get you at is that you can't talk what I talk. When you break it down, you know what I mean? There's no real malice. It's just a case of anything. But that is such a prominent issue.
It is,
like
isn't
if
it?
the person don't speak, then they get ribbed or they get teased and whatnot. Yeah, and it happens often, even with adults, big grown ass adults.
Right.
It does happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So you didn't go to boarding school. You stayed with your uncles.
My uncles were smart enough not to put me in boarding
Do you
school.
think your experience would have been different if you were told, well,
I would have took over the school, man. I know what I was like.
Right.
I would have, because how I was when I was talking about these little Ghanaian parties that we would go to. Everyone remembers this, and I wish my sister was on this live to verify and confirm. But once I go to those parties, within like an hour or two, I'm coming back with like 4, 5, 6 friends. Like, Mum, Dad, I've made these new friends.
Yeah.
And if they sent me to board, God bless my uncles, man. Like they're smart guys, like who my mum left me with. And in terms of one of the things I was going to mention, and I think you are going to mention it, so I'll just mention it shortly and I'll elaborate later, was that who you leave your kid or your children with is quintessential.
Wow.
And she left them with brothers who absolutely adore her and would do anything for her, and they did.
For you, yeah.
They did every and anything. Yeah. And and they were really considering sending me to either GIS, Ghana International School, like a private upscale school, or SOS in Tema, which is where I was living with one of my uncles. Tema was the realistic one in terms of the whole boarding and everything. GIS, they just thought, all right, cool, they can afford it, but you know. But I was gonna go. They were considering boarding, but they were like, nah, but we know what Papa is.
You went to school, or you were home?
Yeah, I did. I had tuition. So okay, let me just be clear. I attended a school, but I didn't actually. I went in their classes. I had private tuition at school. Yeah, so at the school, at Accra Academy and Tema Secondary School.
Oh, okay. So that would have been a different experience. That would have been a better experience than here, getting one-on-one tutoring.
Okay. The tutoring wasn't exactly one-on-one. There'll be a few people that I was with,
but still,
it was separate from a class. I'm sorry?
I was saying compared to the classes of 25, 30 in this country.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Totally different kettle of fish, and it was good because obviously you get more of the teacher's attention and
right,
time,
right, right,
and it helped.
right.
I mean, I just for the article, I went to Temper Secondary School, and it was crazy. It was really nice just to go back there. So yeah.
Okay, with your experience that of how you felt, all the emotions and so forth, if your child was in the route that you were going down, would you do the same thing and would you send them to Ghana?
Shit, man. I wish you would have sent me this question a while ago because it's a good question that I feel I need to prep for. It's a good question. I would, but you know what? What really informed my decision is knowing who I would send him to.
Okay.
I've got a sister who loves the crap out of me, and I've got a cousin who's a brother. We don't use cousins. I've got a brother who really loves me and would do anything for me, and those two factors are what made is what brought me to that decision that I would.
But
Because knowing who you can leave them with is so paramount.
right,
Anywhere.
right, because if a parent didn't have somebody that was really close that could look after them and was thinking of sending them to boarding school, and let's say you didn't have those people, would you still consider sending your child to Ghana
To boarding school.
Boarding school, yeah.
It would depend. Okay, sorry. Well, you said if the child was getting on like how I was getting on,
getting arrested, so forth.
I want to lean towards still saying yes, only because of knowing the value of being removed from the environment where you're causing all the wahala, all the trouble. Like being removed out of the environments of where you are causing the trouble is essential. It's a big deal.
But
it's a huge
being
deal.
removed temporarily and being removed for 5 years, two different things. So would you still?
But you said going to boarding school, so that would be a while,
right?
I
True.
assume.
Yeah. Okay. What advice would you give to any parents thinking of potentially having to do this and go down that route?
Right. And that's like I said, like I alluded to,
people.
knowing who you're sending your children to. So even if you are doing the boarding school thing, there still needs to be someone who you can wholeheartedly trust with your children, essentially. So that's the biggest thing. Like knowing who you can trust, knowing who you can send your children to, what age, what stage they are in life, because if you send them to like an elderly, like a grandma, for instance, in terms of the care, the nourishment, the food and stuff, that will be there. But someone, having to have someone to put their foot down, like you're not going out, or because there were times where I had to always tread around eggshells, even though I was still unruly. That whole thing about having to think twice or even thrice before making a move is the difference between avoiding trouble and getting into trouble. And I think that's what my uncles provide. And I'm sure like strong-minded aunties would have done the same as well had I been staying with them. So choosing who they stay with is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, in my opinion.
I've always had a thought that once, especially being a young boy in the UK or in London, should I say, that it's not the safest in some areas. So I've kind of always had a thought that, maybe here wouldn't be the best place for them. So sending them to Ghana in a sense. But from your point of view, do you think that that's the best thing to do in terms of raising teenage boys in Ghana compared to the UK from your experience?
Honestly, based on my experience, I do, because and I'm assuming they're Ghanaian as well.
Yes.
Or this, but this is applicable to even
Any country,
you know, if
yeah.
you're from the Caribbean. Because when you get taken out of your initial environment that you've been born and raised in, and you're in a different environment where, for the most part, a lot of the things that you had in terms of your own room, in terms of video games, depending on what age, if you had a car, a washing machine, like what, being sent there taught me gratitude as well as the respect. Gratitude for just having things that I took for granted. I took so much stuff for granted.
It's really important. That's really important.
Yeah. So
because one thing Ghana would do, I definitely, because obviously for me, I grew up, my backstory is I grew up in the UK, and then I just decided that I kind of achieved all that I wanted to do in the UK, and I just wanted to change the scenery. So I moved to Ghana, and I experienced some not so great things in Ghana. I had armed robbers. Experienced that. I was out. I was robbed, and these are things, mind you, that never happened while I was in the UK, but it was for the first time for me. They happened while I was in Ghana for whatever reason, right? And I feel like Ghana itself is very humbling, because sometimes even when you see, you know, the people that come around and fix shoes, for example, the amount of times people will just fix one chalewate. Do you see what I'm trying to say? But here we buy things constantly. Oh, what they're spoiled. Okay, I don't like the color. I'm going to go and change it. All those little things, I think for me, were very character building.
1000%.
And that was me choosing to go, right? That was me choosing to go. And I feel like those things were really character building, to the point 100%. Where I wish that every young person could actually have obviously when they, like the way they do work experience, I wish every young person could have the opportunity to do some sort of foreign exchange, you know, that type of thing. Because honestly, the things that I learned about myself, the things that I learned about the culture, I couldn't learn that from here. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So I think in general, I wish that is something that can happen. In your case, it's a shame that it happened with that kind of in that way, just like the other articles that are coming up, you know, having to go to court. There was a news article, as a news report, Channel 5 done it, about a boy that actually managed to get back, and he was saying that he doesn't speak to his dad anymore, and this, that, and the other. So it's a shame when it happens like that, but if only it could be seen as a bit more of a positive thing. The amount I think that someone could get out of it would be fantastic, honestly.
Yeah.
Even for my own kids, I don't know how it's going to happen, but they definitely need to spend a long time in Ghana. I don't know when and how, but that is definitely something that, would that be the same for you? Would you want your children to spend?
I think I would you know, inshallah, I would have them born here, get them a red passport, and then you're doing time in Ghana, whether you're behaving or whether you're behaving or not, because of the cultural benefits, because of what it can actually build in terms of character building. 100%. When you alluded to the whole Shoeshine boys doing the shoes and everything, had I not had those experiences, there would have been bare crepes that I have now that I would have just thrown away. But now I actually fix them, or I clean the hell out of them. Up to this day. And I can afford to buy and wear and you know what I mean? But nah.
The way I spend money is different after being in Ghana. The way I shop is different. The things that I shop for are different. It is just an amazing experience, regardless of, like I said, it had a lot of negatives as well as positives. But overall, it is extremely character building. And you mentioned about where you were playing football and how, you know, just in those environments, it made you that bit stronger and so forth. So I think those are the things that I wish people kind of knew more about. Do you understand? But yeah. Okay, I mean, so for my final question, what is one thing you wish people knew about the whole experience that, you know, you've been through in terms of being shipped there, not knowing you were shipped there? Is there one thing that you wish people knew about it?
What else would think people would know about it? Yeah, I know, because you actually sent me this as well, and I did stumble on that one. The reason why I'm reluctant to say anything definitive is because I think it really does vary, and I think it is subjective in terms of I could say this. I mean, so one parent would need to maybe hear something else depending on where their children are in society, whether they're law-abiding or whether they're breaking rules or whatever, and others will probably need to hear something else. For me, one thing that I think that parents should take from this is that I think regardless, it will enrich your child.
Whatever way, yeah.
Like if the end goal is to get like a proper reform, or which is kind of what which is kind of half what why I was sent out for, then it can vary. But just to kind of like let the parents know that, I mean, it will enhance your child regardless. They'll connect with their roots regardless. They'll be more integrated into that society regardless. They will be more richer for it spiritually, because they would have had to have lived in a new environment, integrate into a new environment, abide by that new environment in terms of the respect thing. You don't walk in between people. You see certain people of a certain age, you greet. It may not solve the big problem, but I can almost swear and guarantee that the child will come back a better person for it. Whether it enhances language, whether it enhances cultural connection through food, through seeing certain places, through going to the beach. I mean, we learned that we don't go to the beach on Tuesdays because it's a spiritual thing, and you have to let the fish replenish. Those little things, and having that awareness and that culture is something, because the Americans, like, okay, I interviewed Deontay Wilder, the boxer, and he was so gassed about finding out about his African heritage.
Right.
He took a DNA test. I've done it for Focus on Africa. He took his DNA test. We had the biggest time about him. But what made me think was that, all right, he's got, he was the champ at the time before he was fighting Mike Tyson Fury. He's got millions, hundreds of millions, but he doesn't have what I have in terms of the richness of culture.
Right.
And he would, and just hearing the passion that he was talking with it, he would kill for that. Or he would at least knock a man out for that, like which is what he's paid for. But so yeah, not to kind of regurgitate what I was saying, but just to end off with the fact that no matter what level your child is, sending them there for a lengthy period of time, they'll come back knowing something. They'll come back with more knowledge, with more information, with more culture, and with more ability to connect to where their land of heritage. And that stuff is important. I mean, you have children that go to Greek school, Gujarati school, Jewish school. So if they can't even do it by sending their children back home, they'll find a way to do it here. Yeah. We've only got apps, and it's not good enough. Yeah. Like, we need to have like schools or classes where it's teaching Ghanaian culture, Nigerian culture, African culture, Caribbean culture, the works. Yeah. And it's because,
why do you think we don't have that?
Because it's, not to sing a swan song or a violin set, but it's bloody hard for us as it is. The odds are against us as it is. So I'm of the assumption that these parents that are busting their asses to provide the best of life for their children may not necessarily have the time to integrate them into a Saturday school, which will enhance their culture and connection to their country of origin. Maybe. because it's hard enough. It's hard enough dealing with the covert racism out here, the discrimination out here, the disparity of like wages between men and women and black and non-black people. We got a lot, but again, that's not no kumbaya talk. That's not no swan song. It's just the truth. So I'm of the assumption that these parents probably had so much to deal with that the last thing that's on their mind is, let me send them to Saturday school and see how they fend. Okay. Do you know what I mean? That's just how I think. Yeah.
But do you know that, like, this is how I feel about it, that if something isn't done, right, the culture is, for a lot of people, a lot of children, is going to be lost, right? And it concerns me a lot that even though, like I said, I can't speak the language fluently, one thing my mum has, she's very, very cultural. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So the food, even the language, everything, very, very cultural. So that has definitely imparted its way on us. However, if that generation is, it worries me a lot. And being a mother now, it worries me a lot that if that generation is no longer here, what are we going to do? Namings, in traditional engagements, all of funerals. It's such a big part of our culture. But if they're not here, what is that looking like for us?
It looks bleak, potentially. But what we all have to do, because we can't, you know, you can't save the whole entire nation. I think the best thing to do is to work within the parameters of your four walls and your house. Like even you, Larissa, like go download these apps and start learning Tree, like ASAP, you know, and find out more. Like my colleague Hannah Ajala, she's Nigerian, but then done an amazing documentary about Ghanaian funerals, which you were alluding to in terms of the customs and everything. These are just things that I think individually we should just do. Again, I don't think it works if you do that whole kumbaya, let's do it as a collective, because I might be up financially and could be in a more comfortable position to take this additional task of learning more about culture and language and everything. Someone else could be struggling, unemployed, and is just worried about paying the next bill. So I think individually, everyone just has to just tidy up their own gaff, proverbially,
I know what you mean.
Proverbially speaking, and just, you know, that way, if I know that I'm not speaking the language fluently, let me do that. If I know I can't put together jollof or wachi or fufu, let me do that. You know, if I don't know the customary knocking of engagement with Ghanaian weddings, let me look it up and learn. Because to tell you the truth, it will always be there. It's not going nowhere. It's just the diaspora will suffer. And then our families and people will just look at us, be like, sure, like where Jimmy Parr doesn't even know. He doesn't even know nothing about their culture and everything. But so again, so that leads me to just saying, take care of your own gaff. You know.
But you mentioned about the other cultures having Saturday schools, this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. And obviously, maybe certain families not being in a position to take that up, let's say in the African or Ghanaian community or whatnot. But do you not think that's something that is important to have? Because those other cultures, for example, it's a necessity to them. Why is it not so much a necessity to Ghanaian?
I wouldn't necessarily say necessity. It's just like a prerequisite. You living in this roof, then school don't end on Friday, you know, school ends on Saturday when you do Gujarati school or whatever school.
Then why is it not for African households or Ghanaian households?
Do you know what? They just fall in line more. When I say fall in line, they understand the need to stay culturally connected. If we don't stay culturally connected, we can't even, well, I'm not saying we can't, but it will almost be like we're essentially stuck on this island, on this British Isle, if we can't be culturally connected. Jewish, they're culturally connected. So if God forbid, and things escalate, and you know, things are getting to the extent whereby, well, I can't say if things escalate, because unfortunately Jews have been targeted even out here. If it got to a stage whereby people are considering, you know, we may need to bounce, they can integrate in Israel relatively comfortably, because they speak Hebrew, they know the customs, they know the religion and whatnot. So and that goes back to, well, what about us? I got my green passport, like let me correct myself. My sister patterned my green passport quick time for me, in a sense where, God forbid, the shit hits the fan out here.
Yeah, you can go
bounce and I can integrate, because of how long I've been able to integrate into that culture and society. So they just understand the necessity to be on board, in terms of, yo, if we don't have our cultural connection and identity, we ain't got nothing. In terms of, I'm talking from their perspective, you know. And
but I'm just, in my mind, I'm just thinking, why isn't that the thought of, I guess, Ghanaian, African?
Listen, man, again, not no kumbaya talk, but they done a job and a half on us, you know, in terms of divide and conquer. Like we're talking centuries in terms of mind state. Don't let me go on a different tangent in terms of how we were doing so well, and I wasn't going to go controversial, but I think it's necessary to say that Ghanaians on the ground, for the most part, they check for like foreigners and white people more than they check for their diasporian people.
Yeah.
If they had to pick, if they had to choose, you know.
Even sometimes, being in Ghana when I was living there, the way I would get treated to the way a white person would get treated is different.
Service, they get dealt with first.
Yes.
They'll be quick to rush to them, hoping and praying, not knowing, hoping and praying that they'll pattern them up with a little tip or something.
Yes.
Like, we've had a number done on us, but it's not an excuse. It's the truth, but it's not an excuse. Like, it's a case of like, okay, look, we're at the back of the race. We're running a relay of life, but let's just tie our boots and get on with it, because we're already playing catch up.
Already,
Let's get the culture in, whether it's via schools, whether it's via lessons, even if it is apps, but do something. Do something. You know what I mean? Go on YouTube and again find those recipes to make the dishes. I did that. I mean, I was learning how to cook like the traditional egg and tomato stew in Ghana. Done it great. Lost my touch. I went back on YouTube, found my touch again, rediscovered my touch, and then I'm in there like Gordon Ramsay again. So it depends. You know,
it just it's a lot to think about, and in terms of preserving the culture and, you know, fostering a positive relationship with the kids here and Ghana itself. So that's obviously part of why I wanted to speak to you, and thank you so much for being so open and sharing
pleasure, man.
You're
doing a great thing with the only way is Ghana, by the way, man. So
thank you.
Great.
I mean, it's been going for about 10 years now, and I took a bit of a hiatus. I'm just looking at the if there's any comments that we need to answer. A bit of a hiatus, and I'm trying to kind of bring it back, but with a different kind of direction, maybe just having more conversations about what we need to do to stay.
There's a lot more conversations to have. Like, I mean, I went on one in terms of another conversation to maybe even look at, and it's something that I'm certainly going to explore, is the diaspora divide, the divide between the diaspora and the locals. You know, it's something that needs to be addressed in terms of, I mean, we half alluded to the whole the preferential treatment of like of white people or non-Ghanaians or not, or even non-British Ghanaians to the diasporas like us. It's evident. I've seen it. You've probably experienced it. Sifa might have experienced it.
I've experienced it a lot, but living in Ghana and work, because I was working in Ghana as well, and I found that
could be worse.
Yeah, so for me, I'm just going to be honest and say that I found that the Ghanaian men were actually a bit more welcoming towards me, in terms of trying to start up a friendship or talk to me rather than the women. The women were very frosty when I go to the bank. A lot of the women are really frosty, and you know, I just
because here comes this fine
right,
abrochi girl potentially coming to take, you know, having the best pick.
To see it is that the only difference between us is that my mum moved to the UK, and unfortunately or unfortunately, I was born here. That's the only difference between us. So I didn't understand what that frostiness was about. But
like I said,
it wasn't the easiest.
Man, they've done a job on us.
Yeah.
They've done a job on us, man. And to the credit of a lot of people in Ghana now, they're, you know, that I think, if not the divide is coming closer, at least relations are thawing. There's a lot more, but we've got a long way to go, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? We've got a long way to go, but you know, I think things like this help. But you see, even the Ghanaians in the diaspora, we have this in common. We like to talk. You know, we like talking, but got to get on with it. We've got to get on. We got to get on job. We've got to get on an agenda, and it doesn't have to be collective. Like I said, just pattern your house. Just sort your house out, and then
you said something there. But even then, if it's not a collective, even getting the message out to do something just in your collective, you know, just in your circle, in a sense.
Yeah.
So even that. But there's a question here. Would you say it was just the fear of leaving behind what you were used to in the UK rather than the fear of going back home to Ghana? I hope that makes sense. Shall I read it again?
Sorry, yeah, can you say that again? Yeah. Was it the fear of...
Would you say it was the fear for you? Would you say it was the fear of leaving behind what you were used to in the UK rather than the fear of actually going back home to Ghana? What was it? Was it the fact that you just didn't want to leave what you were used to in the UK, or was it really like, oh my gosh, I have a fear of kind of being left in Ghana? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I didn't have a fear of being left in Ghana. Nah, I was just like, what am I here?
It was probably then your fear of leaving behind your friends, I guess. I meant to ask, did you get to keep in contact with them?
My friends abroad?
No, when you left to go to Ghana, were you able to speak to your friends in the UK? Boy, that's...
You're asking good questions, man. Car, they might be on this live, or they might see this later on. So I got to be careful. I say it with love. I made a decision to just go in a different way.
You were good then.
Yeah, and you know what? When I came back, we linked up.
Right.
And for a good number of years, we were like hanging around in the studios and everything.
Drifted.
But sorry,
did it just drift on its own?
No, it was a conscious decision on my part to just be like, yeah, do you know what? Do your own thing, because I'm not easily led astray, and I like you know, just doing what I want to do in terms of as opposed to like following someone else's program. So no, I didn't stay in touch. and it was great. That kind of like that isolation isolation was great. That making new friends, forging new relationships was great, and I felt, even at such a young age, I felt way more worldly in terms of.
Can imagine.
My people in London are there; they're not going anywhere.
Can imagine.
But now I'm actually setting up. I'm setting up like a new a friend circle, or at least like colleagues circle or whatever. So I just felt more worldly and just thought, you know what?
That's how I feel. Like I could have stayed in the UK and all I would know is my people in the UK. However, I've then gone to Ghana, made a whole new set of friends, met people through work, met lifelong friends that I'm still close with today. If I need something, if I need to know something, I can call them. I think I wouldn't change it for the world personally. But another question. Do we need to speak to the parents and change their approach to, I guess, sending back, or speak to the young people to change their mindset about, I guess, living in Ghana?
I think you can do both, but at the same time with the parents, what was the part with the parents that she said? Sorry, Larissa.
Do we need to speak to the parents and change their approach, or speak to the young people to change their mindset?
No, I don't necessarily think you have to speak to the parents to change their approach. Assuming that their approach is what they would use, the approach that they would use is to send the children or child back. I don't think that necessarily has to change. Because like I said earlier in this conversation, it will benefit them regardless. It may or may not bring about the desired result, or they may reform to the degree that you want them to, or not, but they would inevitably come back a better person, more spiritually enriched, more connected to their cultural roots. So I know I wouldn't discourage them from doing that.
Do you think there's a danger of ruining the relationship between the child and their parents?
Depending on how it's done.
Yeah.
Like I alluded to, my mum was smart enough to add a few drops of deception in order to get me over there, because if she told me the truth and just wanted to be transparent and all, doing it the nice and right way, I would have done a runner straight. So,
but then being duped into it, does that then ruin the relationship?
No. Because she done it for my betterment.
Yeah.
She didn't do it to punish me.
Yeah.
I made the decisions to go outside and do what I was doing.
Right.
I got myself into this situation of being excluded several times. She's the one who's tidying up and or doing kind of like societal surgery by just removing me and then planting me into Ghana. So that's why once I stopped the crud, I worshipped the ground she walked on. And I didn't move out the yard, still here.
But I'm so glad that it was a positive, in the long run, a positive experience for you. And thank you so much, like I said, for sharing your experience. And
keep doing what you're doing. Honestly, man, it's a great look. And just everyone just deal with and improve yourself and deal within your circle. Because I think
that maybe then that's what I'm saying, not necessarily a collective thing, but that's the message. That's got try and push out there. Everyone just take care of your own garden.
Yes.
And
I don't mean that in a selfish, individualistic way, you know. I mean that. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm saying, if we kind of do what we can within, and again, that's why I'm having this conversation, because I want to look at what I can do for my children. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So that's the main thing. My mum told me that we was going to see my grandmother for a few weeks, and I ended up being there for a year. Oh Lord, see.
Yeah, but how exactly. Did it enrich you? How was it for you? I before you even text your answer, I'm pretty much sure it brought you back to London a more enriched person, culturally, culturally for that matter. So, it's just because that whole let's doing it as a collective, let's band together. Yeah, that's the kind of kumbaya stuff that don't work, in my opinion.
Really? Why do you think it doesn't work?
Because people are on different time. I could be someone who's struggling to pay the rent. You could be someone who's absolutely sailing financially, doing great. We are on two different times here. I don't have the time to kind of like band together, hold hands, kumbaya, and start learning tree for the sake of the betterment of the diaspora. I ain't got that time. I'm trying to figure out how to pay this bill. So, but if we just make it a priority to just,
do what we can.
This is important. This is quintessential. It's and other religions and other races and other ethnicities know it. So just have that in your mind from as a collective standpoint. I mean, when I'm in the Beeb, I can talk a bit of tree with colleagues. That may seem trivial to you. That is bloody valuable. Because sometimes we need to say what we need to say in front of certain Ogonies, and we have to get it out and say it. You know what I mean? So, that's why I say that, and the only I would welcome anyone who had a problem with saying that no, we need to do it as a collective. Show me how. You show me the blueprint. I'm big enough to just correct myself and be like, okay, boom, you got. But
I guess people can do what they can for their, whether it be for their household or whether it be for their immediates, because I know there is a company that do they teach the language, and people tend to go. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So it's small pockets of people doing what they can do, whether it be your household or whether it overflows. Whoever's willing to take it, whoever's at that point that they can take it, then fair enough. But no, fabulous. Thank you so much. Mark.
I think Baby
Sifa was
Vince,
saying that she wishes she got sent back. Again,
but I wouldn't know you if what are you? Sorry, is Vince saying that if we were on different times, then you wouldn't have known Sifa or something?
Yeah, then she wouldn't have known Sifa if she got sent back. She's saying, but someone said, we're all on different time, I guess. So
we just the only thing in my opinion that we all need to be on the same time on is the importance of having to do this, of having to connect and to connect with our culture.
Right.
That's what we all need to be on time with, because we're playing catch up.
Right.
We're the worst, you know.
I know.
Us and Nigerians.
I know.
Like, you know, because I know way more Kenyans speak their language than us in the diaspora.
Right.
Way more South Africans in the diaspora speak their native language than us. And these are all countries that had the same former colonial rulers as well, you know. So what are we doing wrong?
No.
You know?
It's
anyway,
well, that's
so that's another conversation.
No, I mean, that's the question. That's why it was, you know, it's good to have these conversations, because for me, I'm always wanting to learn. I'm always wanting to, like I said, find out what I can do to kind of forge that relationship, that positive connection, and keep the culture alive, really. So thank you. I was lucky enough to go back regularly, 3 years. And that's fortunate. And again, that's if parents can afford to send their kids back to go on holiday.
That part. That's another part.
You know, because you were saying, people are thinking about, how am I going to pay this bill? But, you know, if you can even afford to send your kids back, that's great. But if you can't, what can you do? That's where we're talking the language, the food, the dressing, just teaching your kids a bit more about the culture. Looking forward to more lives. Thank you both. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Mark, so much for blessing us with.
Big up Baby Tins. Did they call you English boy when you went back home? They probably did initially, but then I was ready. I want, just like you want smoke, Baby Tins, I wanted smoke as well. So they kind of backed down and stopped calling me English boy when I showed them I wasn't really feeling that.
Exactly.
Oh, well, bless you, baby.
Exactly.
Larissa, this has been great, you know. So bless you and what your team's doing.
Thank you.
And salute to Sifa.
Yes, for connecting. Thanks, Eve. And hopefully our paths will cross again. Question last question. How often do you go back now?
Annually, man.
Okay.
Every year.
Okay.
It was only when my mum passed last year that I didn't go.
To hear that, by the way.
We had to deal with everything here.
Yeah.
I don't do. I mean, I don't essentially do winters here. I leave like late November and I come back in March.
Wow.
Like March, April. Sometimes April. That's what I normally do.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Because you go. I'm a freelancer. You go out there, you hustle, but you know, God loves a trier, man.
Can I say, obviously, so sorry to hear about your mum, but I think it's amazing that you know, she's not here anymore. But one thing she was able to do for you was that, so that she's left you with your culture. Do you understand?
Yeah, man.
And
the Queen saved my life, man.
Exactly.
I know that sounds all dramatized.
No,
she saved my life.
She did.
Because the same guys that I used to move with prior to getting sent back to Ghana, they got sent down for a couple of years, and that would have been. But we were doing the same thing that they got sent down for. Only they got caught.
Yeah.
So she saved
Bless
me,
her.
point blank.
Yeah.
Saved me.
Yeah.
And Ghana and my mum saved
That's
me.
amazing.
For sure.
But thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate you.
Pleasure.
All right,
honestly,
then.
Lisa.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Take care, yeah?
Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.